same thing. When you go to these Pan-Africanists, they tell you all the glories of Africa and Egypt and all of that, right? Just like on the back of the dollar bill, oh, that's the Illuminati. That ain't got nothing to do with none of that, man. All of that is fairy tales they're giving you. That's the symbol of your government. But they put a foreign pyramid on that dollar. Look at the money prior to 1774. You will find a step pyramid, the same step pyramid you see in Mexico, a.k.a. Mexico. Well, no, they'll give you a history, but they'll always put a lie in it. They'll always put something in it to make you doubt it. You got to know in your heart what you are. So I don't put no stock in no Bible, no Quran, no none of that. But at the same time, I can look and read all of that, get the spirituality out of it, and not fall victim to it because, again, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Moor, I'm an Asiatic, I'm a child of the Most High. So that means these were books that I created to civilize the people that came after me. That's not for me to put myself under. We don't come from a cult. How many pictures you done seen of Watonkan women walking around here with their breasts and everything out? Pan-Africanists, they tell you all the glories of Africa and Egypt and all of that, right? Just like on the back of the dollar bill, oh, that's the Illuminati. That ain't got nothing to do with none of that, man. All of that is fairy tales they're giving you. That's the symbol of your government. But they put a foreign pyramid on that dollar. Look at the money prior to 1774. You will find a step pyramid, the same step pyramid you see in Mexico, a.k.a. Mexico. Well, no, they'll give you a history, but they'll always put a lie in it. They'll always put something in it to make you doubt it. You got to know in your heart what you are. So I don't put no stock in no Bible, no Quran, no none of that. But at the same time, I can look and read all of that, get the spirituality out of it, and not fall victim to it because, again, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Moor, I'm an Asiatic, I'm a child of the Most High. So that means these were books that I created to civilize the people that came after me. That's not for me to put myself under. We don't come from a cult. How many pictures you done seen of Watonkan women walking around here with their breasts and everything out? It wasn't sexist or nothing back then, back in the 1700s, right? These women was running continents, right? It only became decadent and all that stuff in this era that we in because it's not given a proper context. And the sisters are trying to follow behind these white women. They have colonized the minds of original people to such a degree that it's almost too late for them.
One last question out there, because the hour's about up. Real quick, I heard you mention, you mentioned a reference in the Bible as far as the children of Israel being divided. The only other group I've heard in the black community that say that we're not Africans is the Hebrew Israelites. So I want to ask you, what is the Moorish-Hebrew connection? Because I heard some Moorish brothers deal with that before. From your study, what is that our connection to the Hebrews?
There's a book you can get called The Light in the Day, where it gets into that specifically. I can get the author, but it's an older book. Moors are Hebrews, but Hebrews are not even Hebrews. Hebrews are actually Canaanites. After the great floods and all of that, the sons of Noah split from the sons of Ham. The demarcation line between the empire was the place today we call Ethiopia. So everything up from this side of the world up to Ethiopia represented the land of the father. Everything from Ethiopia back to the Far East and all that represented the land of the sun. That's why they call the Far East, the land of the rising sun. Right? The so-called Hebrews, or what we call the term Hebrew, means people who crossed over. Those are the people who descended from Abraham that crossed over the great river being the Atlantic Ocean. And they sent their daughters, our people over here, sent our daughters, our queens, descendants, sent them over there to re-establish the bloodline. So that way they can have babies with the daughters of what they call Bled El Siva, meaning the lands of the lawless, the daughters of Bled El Siva. That's another name the Moors used to call this place. Because we were lawless over here. We were the law. So we didn't have no heavy rules and all that crazy shit that some other Africans and European Moors were dealing with. So from that cross-migration and that migration, that set up within the genetics of the people what is called the epigenetic transgenerational inheritance. That's a genetic inheritance coming all the way from the original Godfather Allah, from the beginning of time, the creation, all the way up to us right now. We have that DNA stored in us. That's why when we take the name Bay and Hill at the end of our names, we are setting ourselves up back to be the true royalty of the planet, because those are the two oldest titles of nobility ever. So there was a section of those people that came out of Tama Ray who were in disaccord with the greater political structure here, and they set out on their own. They then went and traveled all the way up into what we call Canaan, and then fought wars. But at this time, Canaan that we know, when they talk about the walls of Jericho falling, that Jericho, these walls that they talk about happen over here in Brazil in a place called Jericho-Macara. There's a book by a brother named the Negus who wrote a book called Job Turkey that deals with all of it. Long story short, those so-called Hebrews adopted Canaanite theology, and they created a language based upon the Canaanite cuneiform that is actually another form of ancient Latin and ancient Punic, which was the language that was spoken that predate even hieroglyphs, showing you then that the pre-dynastic Kemet and all of that is over here. That's why the oldest pyramids in the world is over here. So specifically, this culture, this ancient Canaanite culture, thrived, and after the 7th century BC, moved up into Hispania, aka Spain, and then set up what today we call the modern aspect of Hebrewism. Then they, being that we were selling Caucasian people by the mass at this time, adopted a certain group of these Caucasoids from the Khazarian, from the Caucasus Mountains, and gave them an aspect of this so-called Hebrewism called Judaism, and then used them as money changers to then sell other Caucasian people who were brought to them. And so they couldn't speak Hebrew, so we gave them an aspect of that in their language, their gutter language that was now called Yiddish. These people that you call Hebrew Israelites are actually Christians. You understand? But Jesus himself that they speak about was not a Christian. He was a Muslim. You understand? Not a Muslim now, but I'm talking about a Muslim. A Muslim is somebody from the ancient world that has all the Asiatic cultures synonified within them. A Muslim is one who strictly follows the Sunnah or religious aspect, fundamentalist aspect of Islam. But Islam predates the religion. And the Moors were the ones who brought that. So when we talk about, again, Hebrewism, these so-called Hebrew tribes, and then after the expulsion of Spain or whatever, pushed themselves back down, and after a certain amount of time, they asked permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to come over here and set up kingdoms, because they had already set up 4 kingdoms out of that. These tribes were the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, and I was the last one. But out of them, they created Morocco, Tunis, Tripoli, and Algiers. And so they hooked up with their cousins over here, asked permission from the pharaohs of Egypt. Back then, there was no term pharaoh over there. That's even a new term. They called them peoples over there Paharus or Nasut. That was the name of the ruler. The pharaoh, when we look at the etymology of that word, was an indigenous word of the Americas from a specific tribe called the Montaka, aka the Monto. So when they asked permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to come over here and settle kingdoms again, they was talking about people over here. If they wasn't, then if I wanted to stay at your house, I would ask you. I wouldn't ask your neighbor, would I? Right. So again, what I'm talking about, my brother, is that our people suffer from the lack of common sense. Our people suffer from the lack of being led. And we are being led astray by brothers who may have had good intentions, but because they are narrow-mindedly looking at things in one way, that they are actually promoting the same white supremacy by not looking beyond their own individual prejudices against what they are. Because believe it or not, some of these same brothers that's pumping all of this shit is descended from the same ones that got us in this position in the first place. How about that? Because genetics don't change. They only evolve or mutate. So This is why I don't debate. I don't argue. I don't sit there and try to get other people to see how I'm saying it is the truth. I already know what it is for me. Enough that I prove it to the same government that has been trying to kill me since I've been born. And they have acknowledged it to the point that they have received and sent me certain documentation, therefore that you get the rest of these crackers to back up off me. But they not my problem. My problem is the Negroes or the Negropeans or the dirty Moors or the Pan-Africanists or whoever else is trying to convince me and my son and my woman that we came from Africa and that we had no protection against 3 ships that came from nowhere and killed over 100+ million people from Alaska all the way to Chile. If you believe shit like that, then you got to believe the white man God. There's no way that I could talk to you about nothing. If you believe that, you believe anything. If you believe that you could be in slavery longer than a country that you in exists, there's something wrong. If you believe that you are African American, but you can't give me one lick of proof that you're from Africa or anybody in your family is from Africa. My grandmother, blessed with that, this chick went out with the ambassador to Gambia. I grew up with the ambassador to Gambia in my house. And when I started going through my little fake Pan-Africanism from listening to, X-Clan and the rest of these brothers and stuff, you know what I mean? The first thing that nigga told me, you're not African. You're not African, Charlie. You're not. And I would argue with him. Yes, but show me where you're from Africa. Where? You're not. They're lying to you. This is what he was telling me. You understand? So it wasn't until I got later in years now, show you how it works. So I would have these discussions in front of my grandmother and all that. She would sit there and act like she didn't know what we talking about. One day I got knowledge of self, boom, came into more science, got my first test, feeling good, walked into the crib. She looked at me, the first thing she said, oh, you a Moor now? I looked at her, I was like, what? You know what that is? She was like, yeah, I know the L's and the Bays and all that. I said, so I'm looking at her son. Like, so you knew this all these years? You knew this shit existed? And you let me walk around here with red, black, and green medallions and all this other shit? That's when I realized, man, these people have sworn oaths to keep us in this position, both white people, black people, all that. Black people are the only people in the world that's preyed on by every other race, especially their own. So for every cop that kill a black man, there's 3 other murders that can happen at the hand of a black man against a black man. You understand? Mm-hmm. What we're witnessing with these murders and all that, this is a culling. For those people that know what a culling is, when the herd gets too thick, you got to start killing off some of the sheep. And that's what they're doing. Because they know as the paradigm shift is happening, where all of these international forces that were down with the old Moorish Empire, you think it's coincidence that the Moroccan flag is red, the Chinese flag is red, the Russian flag is red, and these are the biggest countries right now putting the hurting on the United States and Africa to the point where they done bombed them so much out of Syria, they now invading Cameroon. I bet you ain't hear no Pan-African talking about this. Because these niggas don't know what they talking about, man. And I'm not trying to diss nobody in particular. I'm talking about everybody in general. It's also why I don't debate and all that, because I watch how these so-called black people, conscious black people, whatever, created this whole debate culture that destroyed the conscious community. And ain't nobody talking about that. Now I'm watching niggas that participated in the destruction of the conscious community now coming out talking against it. Oh, we shouldn't have been debating and all that. Nigga, you was the main one. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But I'm not one for the constant talking like that. I'd rather deal with the people, deal with people who really want to really get free, really want to access your estate that exists for you here now, not in Africa, but now, where you can take it and get aspects of it all over the planet because everybody's waiting for you to wake up. I done spoke to diplomats, dignitaries, and they all telling me the same thing. I got on my feds, they got on their thing, and they like, yo, once all your people wake up, it's over. But, for those that are